Hi guys, and welcome to Boring History Secrets channel. Tonight we step onto a wooden deck locked in ice, where the horizon has vanished into darkness and the sea itself seems to sleep beneath you. Have you ever wondered how a human body endures rest in a place where night stretches for months, and the cold feels almost alive? Or what it means to close your eyes while surrounded by creaking timber and shifting ice? Never fully certain if the ship will hold so before you settle into the story, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, and as you listen, I would love for you to share your location and local time in the comments below. Now, dim the lights. You stand quietly on the frozen deck as evening settles, though evening here feels more like an endless extension of night. The sky hangs low and heavy, tinted with faint traces of blue and grey, while the sea around you has hardened into uneven plates of ice. Each step beneath your boots produces a soft, brittle crunch, a sound that seems far too loud in the stillness. The air smells faintly of salt and tar mixed with something sharper, like cold iron. You pull your coat tighter. It is never quite enough. Ancient sailors who ventured into Arctic waters quickly learned that sleep was not a simple retreat from the day. It was a calculated act of survival. Historical accounts from Norse seafarers and later exploration crews suggest that resting hours were shaped by the environment itself, not by any predictable rhythm. The concept of night and day lost its meaning, replaced by cycles of exhaustion and necessity. You glance toward the rigging, where frost has formed delicate patterns along every rope. The ship itself breathes in slow, uneven groans, its wooden frame adjusting to the relentless pressure of surrounding ice. Somewhere below, a muffled voice carries through the hull, followed by a brief laugh that fades almost immediately. Even laughter feels restrained here, as though the cold has claimed it too. Sleep does not come easily in such a place. Instead, you feel it approach cautiously, like a visitor unsure of its welcome. The cold seeps through every layer, pressing against your skin with patient persistence. Your fingers ache first, then your toes, until even your face begins to stiffen. Sailors often describe this creeping numbness as both a danger and a strange comfort. It dulled the senses, but it also blurred the edges of discomfort, making rest possible in small or fragile moments. Historians still debate how early Arctic voyagers managed consistent sleep cycles during winter expeditions. Some believe they adopted segmented sleep, resting in short intervals between duties, while others argue that exhaustion simply overpowered structure, forcing men into irregular patterns of rest whenever possible. The truth likely shifted from voyage to voyage, shaped by leadership, weather, and sheer luck. A faint wind brushes past you. It carries the distant crack of ice shifting somewhere beyond sight. The sound echoes across the frozen surface, low and resonant, like a slow drumbeat beneath the world. You pause, listening, feeling the vibration more than hearing it. This is the sound that follows you into sleep, whether you wish it or not. There are stories, passed quietly between sailors, about how the ice itself seemed to whisper at night. Some claimed they heard voices carried through the frozen sea. Others insisted it was only the ship settling or distant pressure ridges forming. A few even joked that the Arctic was alive, and gently reminding them that they were intruders. It is difficult to say how much of this was the imagination, shaped by isolation and darkness. Still, the feeling lingers. You begin to descend toward the hatch, leaving the open deck behind. Each step downward brings a subtle shift in sensation. The wind fades first, replaced by a still, enclosed chill that smells of oil and damp wood. Lantern light flickers along the walls, casting long, wavering shadows that seem to move just a little too slowly. Below deck, the world becomes smaller. You duck slightly as the ceiling lowers, your breath visible in faint clouds that drift upward before disappearing. The air feels thicker here, though no warmer. The scent of bodies, wool, and smoke hangs quietly, never overpowering but always present. It is the smell of shared endurance, of many lives pressed together in limited space. Sailors preparing for rest would often linger in these dim quarters, speaking in low voices or simply sitting in silence. There was little ceremony to it, yet a kind of unspoken ritual formed over time. Boots were removed carefully, garments adjusted, layers checked and rechecked, every small action battoned. Because once you settled, movement became an effort. You find a place to sit. The wood beneath you is hard and unyielding, its surface chilled from hours of exposure. You rub your hands together, feeling the slow return of sensation as warmth struggles to build. Nearby, someone coughs, a dry and persistent sound that seems to echo longer than it should. There is no true quiet here. Even in stillness, the ship speaks. It creaks softly, shifts slightly, responds to the pressure outside with subtle movements that never fully stop. These sounds become part of your awareness, blending into the background until they feel almost comforting. Almost. Some sailors claimed they slept better when the ship was noisy, as if the constant reminders of structure reassured them that it still held strong against the ice. Others found the sounds deeply unsettling, interpreting each groan as a warning of potential failure. Sleep in this environment was as much psychological as physical. You exhale slowly. The warmth of your breath brushes against your scarf before fading into the cold air. It is a small comfort, but you cling to it, around you. The others begin to settle, their movements slowing, voices dropping into murmurs that soon disappear entirely. You prepare to lie down, not fully relaxed, never fully safe, just enough to rest. Outside, the darkness deepens. Though it was never truly light to begin with, the frozen sea remains unmoving, its vast surface stretching beyond anything you can see above it. The sky offers no stars tonight, only a heavy blanket of cloud that presses low against the horizon. And within this quiet, uncertain world, you close your eyes, letting the cold, the sounds, and the slow rhythm of the ship carry you toward a fragile, fleeting sleep. You ease yourself deeper into the ship, where the ceiling lowers and the light softens into a steady amber glow. The hatch closes above with a dull thud, sealing away the open air and its biting wind. Down here, the cold feels different. Less sharp, more persistent. It lingers rather than strikes. The hold stretches before you in narrow rows, lined with beams that creak gently as the ship settles into the ice. Lanterns hang at intervals, and their flames trembling just enough to remind you how fragile warmth can be. Shadows drift slowly along the walls, bending with each subtle movement of the hull. You notice the hammocks first. They hang in tight succession, swaying faintly even when no one touches them. Each one is slung from hooks or beams, woven from coarse fabric that has absorbed months of salt and sweat. They are not inviting, not exactly, but they are necessary. You reach out and brush one lightly. It shifts with a soft, deliberate motion, as though responding to your presence. The fabric feels stiff in places, softened in others, worn down by repeated use. Sailors relied on hammocks not for comfort, but for practicality. Suspended above the floor, they kept bodies away from the cold planks below and allowed a degree of movement that matched the ship itself. It was a clever solution. Historical records from northern voyages suggest that hammocks reduced the risk of injury during rough conditions, though in the Arctic winter, rough seas were often replaced by something more silent and insistent. The slow pressure of ice could tilt the ship by small degrees, enough to shift balance and disturb rest. A hammock moved with these changes, offering a strange kind of stability. You begin preparing your own. The process is simple, yet deliberate. You loosen your outer layers, careful not to expose too much skin at once. The air bites quickly at any uncovered surface. Wool and fur remain close, adjusted rather than removed. Sailors learned early that undressing completely invited cold that could linger long after. You pause for a moment. A short breath escapes you. Nearby, another sailor climbs into his hammock with practiced ease, wrapping himself tightly in blankets that have seen better days. The fabric rustles softly, then stills. Above him, a beam creaks in quiet response, as if acknowledging the added weight. There is a rhythm to this space. Bodies settling, cloth shifting, wood responding. It forms a kind of lullaby, though not one you would have chosen. You climb in carefully. The hammock dips beneath you, then steadies, cradling your weight in a way that feels both secure and slightly unsettling. It moves with even the smallest shift of your body, reminding you that rest here is never completely still. You pull your coverings close, tucking edges where you can, trapping what little warmth you have created. It is enough, barely. The smell here is stronger than above deck. Oil from the lanterns mingles with damp wool and the unmistakable presence of many people sharing limited air. It is not unpleasant exactly, but it is heavy. You inhale slowly, letting your senses adjust until it becomes part of the background. Some sailors believed these scents carried a strange comfort, a reminder that they were not alone. Historians still disagree on how much personal space existed in these sleeping quarters during long Arctic expeditions. Some accounts describe tightly packed rows where men slept almost within arm's reach of one another. Others suggest slightly more spacing, depending on the size and purpose of the vessel. The reality likely varied, shaped by necessity rather than preference. You turn slightly. The hammock responds at once, swaying with a gentle motion that travels through the line of suspended beds. One movement becomes many, a chain reaction that ripples softly across the room. For a moment, it feels almost like the sea itself has returned, rocking you in slow, measured waves. It is strangely calming, yet not entirely peaceful. The sounds of the ship remain constant. A low groan here, a faint crack there, somewhere deeper within the hull. A hollow knock echoes once, then fades. Each sound carries a question you cannot quite answer. Is it normal? Is it safe? You close your eyes anyway. Sleep, when it comes, must be accepted without hesitation. Sailors understood this well. Opportunities for rest could vanish quickly, interrupted by duty, weather, or unforeseen danger. You learn to take what is offered, even if it feels incomplete. A faint whisper drifts through the space. It might be someone speaking in their sleep, or simply the movement of air along the wooden beams. In such conditions, the line between sound and imagination begins to blur. Isolation has a way of softening certainty. There are stories of sailors who claimed their hammocks felt warmer when hung closer together, as if shared body heat created a collective shield against the cold. Others insisted that too much closeness brought discomfort, even unease, especially during long stretches of darkness. The balance between solitude and proximity was delicate, rarely perfect. You adjust your position. Carefully, the fabric creaks softly beneath you, then settles again. Your body begins to find its place within the curve of the hammock, muscles easing just slightly as tension releases. It is not full comfort, but it is something close enough to allow rest. Above you, the lantern flickers. Its light dims for a moment, then steadies, casting a soft glow that barely reaches your face. You watch it through half-closed eyes, noticing how the flame bends and straightens, responding to currents you cannot feel. It becomes a point of focus, something steady in a space that never truly stops moving. Time passes differently here. Minutes stretch, moments blur. You feel sleep approaching again, slower this time, more certain. The gentle sway beneath you, the layered sounds around you, the muted warmth held within your coverings, all combine into a fragile balance that supports rest. Not deep sleep. Oh, sleep, but enough. Outside, the ice presses on, silent and immense. Within the hold, the ship endures, its structure holding firm against the weight of the Arctic world, and suspended between these forces, you drift lightly, carried by cloth and quiet motion into a restless, necessary sleep. You wake slowly, not because you're fully rested, but because the cold has found you again. It slips through seams and folds, settling against your skin with quiet determination. For a moment, you remain still, listening, feeling, deciding whether to move or conserve what little warmth you have gathered. The hammock sways faintly beneath you. Not much, just enough. You shift your shoulders and feel the stiffness in your joints, a dull reminder that rest here never fully restores the body. Around you, others stir as well, small movements echoing through the line of suspended beds. A cough breaks the silence, followed by the rustle of fabric as someone pulls their coverings tighter. Layering is everything. You begin to adjust what you wear, careful and methodical. Ancient sailors learned quickly that warmth did not come from a single garment, but from many. Wool against the skin, fur above that, then thick outer layers to trap what little heat the body could produce. Each piece served a purpose, each one essential. You slide your hands along the inside of your coat. The wool feels coarse, almost scratchy, yet it holds warmth better than smoother fabrics. This was widely understood among northern cultures long before maritime expeditions pushed into Arctic waters. Wool retained heat even when damp, a quality that could mean the difference between rest and suffering. You pause briefly. A slow breath follows. Fur comes next. Animal skins, often from seal or reindeer, were prized not only for their thickness, but for the way they blocked wind and preserved body heat. Some sailors obtained these through trade with indigenous communities, while others relied on what supplies they carried from home. The quality varied greatly, and so did the comfort they provided. Historians still debate how effectively early crews adapted indigenous clothing techniques during Arctic voyages. Some accounts suggest successful integration, while others imply resistance or misunderstanding, leading to less efficient use of available materials. The truth likely lies somewhere in between. You pull a fur layer closer around your chest. The texture is uneven but reassuring, the dense fibres trapping pockets of air that slowly warm against your body. It is not immediate. Nothing here is immediate. Warmth builds gradually, patiently, like a small fire coaxed from reluctant embers. Your feet remain cold. They always do. You flex your toes inside thick socks, feeling the limited movement allowed by tightly wrapped fabric. Sailors often wore multiple layers on their feet, combining wool with scraps of fur or additional cloth. Boots, when used below deck, were loosened or removed to prevent stiffness, though this exposed the feet to greater chill. It is a constant negotiation. Too much coverage restricts circulation, too little invites the cold. You sit up slightly in the hammock, testing your balance as it shifts beneath you. The motion is gentle, yet it reminds you how carefully everything must be done. Sudden movements waste energy and disturb others, both of which carry consequences in this confined world. Nearby, someone mutters softly. The words are unclear, perhaps spoken in a dream or half-waking state. Language blends here, with crews often composed of men from different regions, each bringing their own habits and expressions. In sleep, these differences surface in unexpected ways, creating a quiet chorus of unfamiliar sounds. You listen for a moment, then you return to your own routine. Another layer is adjusted around your shoulders, pulled tight enough to hold warmth but not so tight as to restrict movement. This balance was crucial, though not always easy to achieve. Experienced sailors developed an instinct for it, knowing how to arrange their clothing in ways that maximized comfort without sacrificing flexibility. There were quirks, too. Some believed that sleeping with certain furs facing inward improved heat retention, while others insisted the opposite was true. A few even claimed that the orientation of seams could affect warmth, though such ideas were rarely proven. In the absence of certainty, sailors relied on habit and personal experience. You settle back again. The hammock responds with its familiar sway, easing you into a position that feels almost natural now. The fabric supports your weight evenly, reducing pressure on any single point. It is not luxurious, but it works. Your hands find a place beneath your arms. A simple trick. By tucking your hands close to your body, you preserve warmth that might otherwise be lost. This method appears in multiple historical accounts, suggesting it was widely practiced among those facing extreme cold. Small adjustments like this made a noticeable difference over long nights. The air shifts slightly. A faint draught passes through the hold, barely noticeable yet enough to stir the lantern flame above. The light flickers, casting brief shadows that move across the beams and faces around you. You watch it for a moment, then let your eyes close again. Sleep returns in fragments. Not continuous, not deep, just enough. The body adapts in ways you would not expect. It learns to rest within constraints, to accept partial recovery as sufficient. Over time, this becomes normal, though never truly comfortable. There is a quiet resilience in it. You feel it now. Outside, the Arctic remains unchanged, vast and indifferent. Inside, you and the others persist, adjusting, layering, enduring. Each small act contributes to survival. Even something as simple as arranging clothing before sleep. You exhale slowly. Warm breath meets cold air. It fades quickly. And within that fading warmth, you drift once more, wrapped in wool and fur, held in place by careful layers that stand between you and the relentless cold. You become aware of another presence before you fully open your eyes, a subtle warmth that does not come from your own body. It presses gently against your side, steady and unmistakable. For a brief moment, you remain still, letting the sensations settle into your awareness. Then you understand. You're not alone in your space. The hammocks hang close enough that our bodies naturally drift nearer over time, especially as sleep deepens and muscles relax. What begins as distance slowly narrows, until shoulders brush and shared warmth forms an unspoken arrangement. No one announces it, no one asks. It simply happens. You shift slightly and feel the contact more clearly now. A firm but not uncomfortable pressure along your arm. The fabric between you is thin, layered but worn, allowing heat to pass through in small valuable exchanges. In this environment, even the faintest warmth feels significant. It is survival. Sailors in Arctic conditions often relied on shared body heat to endure long nights. Historical accounts from polar expeditions describe how men would cluster together when possible, particularly during extreme cold spells. While personal space might have been valued in calmer climates, here it became a luxury few could afford. You take a slow breath. The air feels warmer here. Not much, just enough. The scent of another person becomes noticeable. A mixture of wool, salt, and the lingering traces of daily labour. It is not unpleasant, though it is strong. Over time, such smells lose their sharpness, blending into the constant atmosphere of the ship. You adjust your position carefully. The hammock sways in response, and the movement carries through the others, creating a soft ripple across the row. The person beside you shifts as well, not waking fully, but responding instinctively. The contact remains, steady and reassuring. There is comfort in this. Even if it feels unfamiliar. Some sailors spoke openly about the benefits of shared warmth, while others avoided the subject, perhaps out of habit or cultural norms. Yet the practice persisted across many voyages, suggesting its importance outweighed any discomfort. In the Arctic, practicality often reshaped behaviour in quiet, lasting ways. Historians still debate how widely this method was accepted among different crews and cultures. Some records emphasize cooperation and communal strategies, while others hint at tension or reluctance. The truth likely depended on individual personalities as much as environmental necessity. You listen to the breathing around you, slow, uneven, human. Each breath adds a subtle layer of warmth to the confined space, gradually lifting the temperature by small degrees. It is not enough to eliminate the cold, but it softens its edge. That alone makes a difference. A faint sound draws your attention. A low murmur, barely audible, passes through the hold, someone speaking in sleep, perhaps, or whispering to themselves in half-conscious thought. The words blur into the background, indistinct and fleeting. You let it pass. There are stranger things here. Some sailors believed that sleeping close to others improved not only warmth but also morale. The presence of another body, even in saints, offered a reminder of shared experience, of not facing the vast Arctic alone. Others, however, found the closeness unsettling, especially during long periods without daylight. You feel both, comfort and unease. They coexist quietly. Quietly, your arm relaxes against the warmth beside you, tension easing as your body begins to accept the shared heat. Muscles that had remained tight now soften slightly, allowing a deeper level of rest to emerge. It is not complete, but it is closer than before. You close your eyes again. The darkness behind them feels different now, less empty. The subtle presence at your side anchors you in a way the cold could not. It reminds you that survival here is rarely an individual effort. It is collective. The ship creaks softly. Isa presses somewhere beyond the hull, producing a distant, muffled crack that travels through the structure like a slow echo. You feel it more than hear it. A gentle vibration that passes beneath you and fades. The warmth remains. You focus on it. There are small traditions that develop in such conditions. Unspoken agreements about how to position oneself, how to share space without intrusion, a slight turn of the shoulder, a careful placement of blankets, a quiet understanding of boundaries that shift with necessity. These details matter. They shape the experience of rest. You adjust your coverings once more, pulling them close around both yourself and the space between you and the other sailor. The shared warmth increases slightly, enough to notice, enough to matter. Your breathing slows, matches the rhythm nearby. There is a subtle synchronization that occurs over time, a blending of patterns that feels almost natural. It is not intentional, yet it happens as bodies settle into proximity and respond to each other's presence. The lantern above flickers again. Its light dims briefly, then steadies, casting a soft glow that barely reaches your closed eyes. You sense it rather than see it. A faint awareness that blends into the background of your thoughts. Sleep approaches once more. This time it feels deeper, more stable. The cold is still there, waiting, persistent as ever. But for now, it is held at bay by layers of wool, fur, and something less tangible, the simple human act of sharing warmth. You drift into that space between waking and rest, where sensation softens and awareness fades. The presence beside you remains constant, a quiet reassurance in a world defined by uncertainty. And within that shared stillness, you find a moment of peace, fragile but real, carried gently on the warmth of another human body in the heart of the frozen sea. You do not wake all at once this time. Instead, awareness seeps in slowly, guided not by light, but by sound. A low, strained groan rises through the ship, deep and resonant, as though the wood itself is exhaling under pressure. It lingers, then fades, leaving a silence that feels heavier than before. You keep your eyes closed, listening. Another sound follows. Sharper this time, a crack, distant yet unmistakable, travels through the frozen sea outside. It echoes faintly through the hull, a reminder that the ice surrounding you is never truly still. Even in darkness, it moves. You feel it in your chest. A subtle vibration. The hammock sways beneath you, responding to the shifting structure of the ship. It is not a violent motion, nothing that would throw you off balance, just a slow, deliberate adjustment, as if the vessel is settling into a new position within the ice. This is the Arctic at night, live in its own quiet way. Sailors often spoke of these sounds with a mix of familiarity and unease. The groaning of timber, the distant fractures of ice, the faint grinding that sometimes followed, all became part of the nightly rhythm. Over time, they learned to distinguish between ordinary movement and signs of danger, though not always accurately. Historians still debate how well early crews understood the behaviour of sea ice during the winter conditions. Some accounts suggest a growing awareness, a learned ability to interpret sounds and movements. Others imply confusion and misjudgment, especially during the earliest voyages into these regions. You open your eyes slightly. The lantern light remains dim, casting a steady glow across the beams above. Shadows stretch and bend with each subtle shift of the ship, creating patterns that feel almost fluid. For a moment, it is difficult to tell whether the movement comes from the flame or the structure itself. You listen again, a softer sound now, a long, drawn-out creak that travels from one end of the hull to the other. It is followed by a faint tapping, irregular and distant, like something gently striking the outer surface, ice, perhaps, nudging against the ship as currents shift beneath the frozen layer. You exhale quietly. Not fear, not exactly, but awareness. Sleep in this environment is never complete. Even in rest, part of your mind remains alert, tuned to the language of the ship and its surroundings. It is a skill developed over time, a necessary adaptation to a place where conditions can change without warning. You shift slightly in your hammock. The movement is small, controlled, yet it sends a ripple through the line of suspended beds. Nearby, someone stirs in response, their breathing changing for a moment before settling again. The shared warmth from earlier remains, though it has shifted with the repositioning. The sounds continue, a low hum of pressure, a distant crack, then stillness. There are stories among sailors of nights when the ice grew especially active, producing sounds so loud and sudden that entire crews were jolted awake. Some described it as thunder beneath the sea, others as the breaking of something vast and unseen. Such events were rare, but they lingered in memory. Tonight is quieter, yet not silent. You close your eyes once more, letting the sounds filter through your awareness without fully engaging them. This is how sleep happens here. Not by blocking out the environment, but by allowing it to exist without resistance. It becomes part of the dream. You begin to drift. The creaking of the ship blends with the rhythm of your breathing, forming a slow, uneven cadence. The distant cracks soften, losing their sharpness as your mind moves toward rest. Even the faint tapping fades into something less defined, more like a suggestion than a sound. There is a strange comfort in it, predictable unpredictability. The knowledge that these noises, unsettling as they may seem, are part of the normal cycle of the Arctic night. They do not always signal danger, often. They are simply the environment expressing itself, vast and indifferent. You feel the hammock steady beneath you. The earlier movement has passed, leaving only a gentle sway that barely registers. Your body relaxes further, tension easing as the immediate disturbances subside. Muscles that had tightened now release, allowing a deeper level of rest to take hold. Your breathing slows, matches the rhythm of the ship. Inhale, exhale. Creak, settle. It becomes a pattern. Some sailors believe that learning to sleep through these sounds was a mark of true adaptation, a sign that the body and mind had adjusted to conditions that once seemed impossible. Others never fully reached that point, remaining light sleepers throughout their journeys. Both experiences were common. You find yourself somewhere in between, aware but not alarmed, resting but not fully removed from your surroundings. The lantern flickers once more, its flame bending briefly before returning to its steady shape. You sense the change without opening your eyes, a subtle shift in light that passes through your awareness like a passing thought. Outside, the ice continues its slow, unseen movements. Within, the ship holds firm, its structure absorbing and responding to the pressure with quiet resilience. And between these forces, you remain suspended, carried gently by fabric and sound. Sleep deepens, not completely, but enough. And as the Arctic night stretches on, filled with distant cracks and soft groans, you drift within it, held by the steady presence of the ship and the strange, unending language of ice. You become aware of the light before anything else, not bright, not harsh, but steady. It presses gently against your closed eyelids, a faint glow that never fully disappears. Even in what should be deepest night, it lingers. You open your eyes slowly. The lantern above you burns with a quiet persistence, its small flame held within a glass casing that has fogged slightly from the cold air. It flickers, but never fails. Shadows stretch along the beams, shifting with every movement of the ship, forming patterns that feel almost deliberate. There is no true darkness here. Not below deck. Sailors relied on lanterns to maintain a constant sense of orientation, especially during long Arctic winters when natural light vanished entirely. Without them, the interior of the ship would dissolve into complete blackness, disorienting and potentially dangerous. Even so, the presence of light brought its own challenges. You notice how it never rests. The flame bends, straightens, then bends again, responding to currents too subtle to feel. Its glow dances across the surfaces around you, touching faces, fabric, and wood in uneven strokes. Nothing remains still under its watch. You shift slightly. The hammock answers with a gentle sway, and the shadows move in response, elongating and contracting as though alive. For a brief moment, it feels as if the room itself is breathing, expanding and settling in quiet rhythm. It is difficult to ignore. Some sailors found the constant light comforting, a barrier against the oppressive darkness outside. Others struggled with it, unable to fully surrender to sleep while their surroundings remained faintly visible. The mind, accustomed to cycles of light and dark, searches for cues that no longer exist. Historians still debate how prolonged exposure to artificial light affected sleep patterns during early Arctic voyages. While lanterns provided safety and function, they may have disrupted natural rhythms, contributing to irregular rest and heightened fatigue. The evidence remains uncertain, shaped by limited records and varied personal accounts. You watch the flame for a moment longer, then you look away. The effort to focus on it feels unnecessary, even tiring. Instead, you allow your gaze to soften, taking in the blurred outlines of the space around you, the beams overhead, the hanging hammocks, the faint shapes of others resting nearby. Everything feels suspended, between light and shadow, between motion and stillness. A faint scent reaches you. Oil, warm and slightly metallic, rising from the lantern. It mixes with the familiar smells of wool and wood, creating a layered atmosphere that is both heavy and oddly reassuring. It tells you that the light is real, that it will continue. You pull your coverings closer. The warmth they hold has diminished slightly, though not entirely. It clings to your body in small pockets, trapped within folds and layers. You adjust them carefully, preserving what remains. Nearby, someone turns. The movement is slow, deliberate, accompanied by the soft rustle of fabric. Their shadow shifts across the wall, briefly stretching into something larger before settling back into its original form. The lantern exaggerates every motion, transforming the ordinary into something more. You close your eyes again, but the light remains. It presses through your eyelids, faint but present, a constant reminder of your surroundings. Sleep comes differently here, shaped by conditions that do not align with Pravichness of the world beyond the Arctic. There is no full surrender, only partial rest. Some sailors developed habits to cope with this, covering their eyes with cloth or positioning themselves in ways that reduced exposure to the lantern's glow. Others simply adapted over time, their minds learning to ignore the light as background noise. You consider shifting position, then decide against it. Movement costs energy, and energy must be conserved. Instead, you focus on your breathing, slow and steady, allowing the rhythm to guide you back toward rest. Inhale, exhale. The light flickers. A pause, then steadies again. There is a peculiar effect that occurs when shadows move continuously within a confined space. The mind begins to interpret patterns, to assign meaning where none exists. Shapes form briefly, then dissolve, replaced by new ones. It is a subtle trick of perception amplified by fatigue and isolation. You sense it now. Not clearly, but enough to notice. A shape that lingers too long. A shadow that seems to shift independently. You recognize the illusion, yet it holds your attention for a moment longer than it should. Then it fades, leaving only the steady glow of the lantern and the quiet presence of those around you. The ship creaks softly. The sound blends with the faint hiss of the flame, creating a background that is neither silent nor intrusive. It simply exists, constant and unchanging, a foundation upon which sleep must be built. You relax further, allowing the light to remain, allowing the shadows to move. They no longer demand your attention. They simply accompany you. Outside, the Arctic night continues, vast and impenetrable. Within the hold, the lantern burns on, its small flame defying the surrounding darkness, and you, suspended between them, drift once more toward a shallow, flickering sleep, not in darkness, but in a dim, shifting glow that never quite lets go. You do not wake to a sound this time, you wake to a touch. A hand, firm but not rough, presses briefly against your shoulder, then withdraws. The gesture is practiced, efficient, meant to rouse without fully disturbing the space. You open your eyes slowly, awareness returning in fragments. Your watch has come. You take a breath. Cold air fills your lungs. It is time. The rhythm of sleep here is never uninterrupted. Instead, it is divided into segments, shaped by duty rather than comfort. Sailors relied on a system of watches, rotating shifts that ensured someone was always awake to tend the ship, even in the stillness of Arctic winter. You sit up carefully. The hammock dips and sways as you move, sending a gentle ripple through the others nearby. The person who woke you has already turned away, moving with quiet purpose toward their own place of rest. Their shift is done. Yours begins. There is no hesitation, only routine. Historical records from northern voyages describe watch systems that varied in length, often depending on crew size and conditions. In harsher environments, shifts could be shorter to prevent exhaustion, though this meant more frequent interruptions to sleep. The balance was never perfect. You feel it now, the weight of incomplete rest. Your body resists the transition, muscles slow to respond, mind still drifting at the edges of sleep. Yet you know the importance of rising quickly. Delay wastes warmth, and warmth is precious. You swing your legs over the side. The cold meets you at once. It seeps through your layers, sharper now after the relative shelter of the hammock. You steady yourself, allowing the sensation to settle rather than shock. Around you, the hold remains dim, the lantern casting its steady glow over those who continue to rest. A few stir. Most do not. The system depends on trust. Tila relies on the others to fulfill their duties, to wake when needed, to endure the cycle without complaint. It is not always perfect, but it holds. You stand slowly. The floor beneath your feet is firm, unyielding, its chill more direct than the suspended fabric you have just left. You adjust your clothing again, tightening layers that have loosened during rest, ensuring that no gaps remain. Small details matter. You reach for your outer coat, pulling it close around your body. The wool scratches faintly against your skin, a familiar sensation that signals readiness. Above it, you secure a heavier layer, designed to block the wind that waits beyond the hatch. The transition begins. From rest to duty, some sailors found these moments the most difficult. The shift from fragile sleep to immediate responsibility. Others adapted over time, learning to move between states with practiced ease. The human body is capable of remarkable adjustment, especially when necessity demands it. You take another breath. Steady, measured. Nearby, a quiet voice murmurs something you do not fully catch, or perhaps a brief exchange between those changing shifts. The words are soft, almost swallowed by the space, yet they carry a sense of continuity, of ongoing effort shared among many. You move toward the ladder. Each step is deliberate, careful not to disturb those still resting. The wood creaks faintly beneath your weight, a familiar sound that blends into the constant background of the ship. It is neither alarming nor comforting. It simply is. You place your hand on the rung. Cold. Solid. The climb begins. As you ascend, the air shifts gradually, becoming thinner, sharper, carrying traces of the outside world. The scent of oil fades, replaced by something cleaner, more biting, salt, ice, wind. You pause halfway, just for a moment, a short breath, then continue. The hatch above opens with a controlled movement, allowing only a brief rush of colder air to enter. You step through, emerging onto the deck once more. The darkness greets you, vast and unbroken, stretching in every direction. The cold is immediate, more intense than below. You pull your coat tighter, instinctively adjusting to the change. The wind brushes against your face, carrying fine particles of ice that sting lightly against exposed skin. It is not violent, but it is persistent. You are fully awake now. There is no choice. The deck beneath your boots feels harder than before, its surface coated with a thin layer of frost that reflects what little light exists. The ship stands still within the ice, yet the environment around it remains in motion, subtle and constant. You listen. The sounds are different here. Less contained. The distant crack of ice reaches you more clearly, echoing across the frozen expanse. The wind adds its own voice, a low, steady presence that never fully fades. Together, they form the backdrop of your watch. Sleep feels distant, almost unreal. Yet you know it will return, in time, in fragments. Shaped once again by the demands of duty, this cycle continues, repeating through long stretches of darkness, defining the experience of those who sail these waters. You take your position. Alert! Attentive. The cold presses close, the night stretches on, and the responsibility settles over you like another layer. Heavy but necessary. Behind you, below deck, others rest in their suspended beds, gathering strength for their own turn. And here, between sleep and wakefulness, you stand within the Arctic night, part of a rhythm that never truly stops. You remain on watch longer than your body would prefer, long enough for the cold to settle deep into your bones again. Time stretches in strange ways here, measured less by clocks and more by sensation. The stiffness in your fingers, the slow ache in your legs, the steady pull of exhaustion behind your eyes. When your shift finally ends, it does not feel like relief, only transition. You descend once more into the hold, carrying the cold with you. It clings stubbornly to your clothing, resisting the dim warmth below deck. The lantern light greets you again, steady and familiar, though it feels softer now after the stark darkness above. You move quietly. Others still sleep, You return to your hammock, easing into it with practiced care. The fabric accepts your weight, dipping and swaying gently as you settle in. The shared warmth from before has faded slightly, but traces of it remain, lingering in the confined air. You close your eyes. Sleep comes faster this time, but not gently. It arrives in uneven waves, pulling you underwards before your body has fully relaxed. Your breathing slows, your muscles release, yet your mind continues to move, drifting through fragments of thought that refuse to settle. Dreams begin. At first, they're simple, familiar places, distant memories, faces that appear briefly and then dissolve. You walk along a shoreline that feels warmer than it should, the sound of waves replacing the creak of wood and ice. The air is softer there, easier to breathe. It does not last. The scene shifts. The shoreline becomes ice. The waves freeze mid-motion, suspended in unnatural stillness. The sky darkens, pressing low against the horizon, until it feels as though it might collapse entirely. You feel it in your chest. A quiet tension. Sailors often reported vivid and unsettling dreams during long Arctic voyages, particularly in the depths of winter. The combination of isolation, disrupted sleep cycles, and constant environmental stress created conditions that blurred the line between rest and unrest. Historians still debate the extent to which these dreams were influenced by physical factors such as cold and fatigue versus psychological strain. Both likely played a role, shaping experiences that were deeply personal yet widely shared. You turn slightly in the hammock. The movement carries into the dream. The ice shifts beneath your feet, cracking softly as you step. The sound echoes too loudly, repeating in a way that feels unnatural. You pause, listening, unsure whether the noise belongs to the dream or the world beyond it. For a moment, they feel the same. You continue walking. The surface beneath you becomes uneven, rising and falling in slow, deliberate waves. The frozen sea is no longer still. It moves with a quiet, unsettling rhythm, as though something beneath it is stirring. You feel watched, not by anything you can see, but by the vastness itself. This sensation appears in many accounts, described in different ways but carrying a similar tone, a sense of presence within the Arctic landscape, not hostile, but aware. Whether this feeling emerged from the environment or the mind remains uncertain. You try to wake, but sleep holds you. Your breathing quickens slightly, though your body remains still within the hammock. The shared warmth beside you offers a faint anchor, a connection to the physical world that persists even as your mind drifts elsewhere. The dream shifts again. Now you are below deck, yet everything feels altered. The lantern light flickers more violently, casting shadows that stretch far beyond their natural reach. The beams above you seem to bend, the wood responding to pressures you cannot see. A voice calls your name. Soft, distant. You cannot place it. You turn toward the sound, but the space stretches, widening impossibly, the walls moving further away with each step. The voice fades, replaced by the familiar creak of the ship, louder now, more insistent. Then silence. Complete. You wake. Suddenly, your eyes open to the dim glow of the lantern, your breath visible in the cold air. For a moment, you remain still, allowing the boundary between dream and reality to re-establish itself. The shapes around you return to their proper forms, the shadows settling into predictable patterns. You listen. The ship creaks softly. Ice shifts in the distance. Everything is as it should be. Almost. You take a slow breath. The lingering tension fades gradually, replaced by a quiet awareness of your surroundings. The warmth beside you remains, steady and real. The fabric beneath you sways gently, grounding you in the present. Dreams like this were not uncommon. Some sailors dismissed them as simple effects of fatigue, while others assigned deeper meaning, interpreting them as warnings or reflections of the environment. A few even recorded their dreams in journals, though such accounts are rare and often fragmented. You close your eyes again. More cautious. Sleep returns, but it feels different now, lighter, less immersive. Your mind remains closer to the surface, aware of the possibility of further disturbances. It is a compromise, a balance between rest and vigilance. Outside of the Arctic night continues without change, vast and unyielding. Inside, you drift once more into a shallow, uneven sleep, shaped by dreams that linger at the edges of your awareness. Not entirely gone, but no longer in control. You're not sure what wakes you this time. Not a touch, not a sound alone, but a sudden change in everything at once. The air feels different, sharper, as though it has been disturbed. The hammock beneath you sways more noticeably, no longer the gentle motion you've grown used to. You open your eyes. The lantern swings. Its light stretches across the hold in long, uneven arcs, shadows racing along the beams in quick, erratic movements. For a brief moment, the entire space feels unstable, as if it has lost its balance. Then the sound arrives. A deep, rolling force presses against the hull, followed by a sharp crack that echoes through the ship. It is louder than anything you've heard so far, closer, more immediate. The wood responds with a strained groan, each beam seeming to protest at once. You hold still, listening. Another impact follows, less violent but steady. As though the ice outside has begun to shift in larger formations, the ship tilts slightly. Not enough to throw you, but enough to be unmistakable. The hammock responds, swinging wider now, its motion no longer entirely controlled. A storm has found you. Not of wind alone, but of pressure and movement beneath the frozen surface. Sailors in Arctic regions often face these sudden disturbances, where shifting ice fields created intense forces against trapped vessels. Historical accounts describe nights when crews were roused from sleep to brace for potential damage, their rest interrupted by the unpredictable behavior of the environment. You sit up quickly, too quickly. The hammock swings harder in response, forcing you to steady yourself with both hands. Around you, others are waking as well, movements overlapping, voices rising in low, urgent tones that remain controlled but unmistakably alert. No panic, but readiness. You swing your legs down. The floor meets you with a jolt of cold, sharper now after the warmth of the hammock. The ship tilts again, slightly in the opposite direction, creating a slow, uneasy rhythm that travels through your body. You adjust your stance. Balance becomes essential. Another crack resounds, closer than before, followed by a grinding noise that seems to drag along the outer hull. It is not a clean sound. It is rough, prolonged, as though the ice itself is scraping against the ship with deliberate force. You feel it in your teeth, a subtle vibration. Some sailors describe this sensation as one of the most unsettling aspects of Arctic storms, the way the ship transmitted external forces directly into the body. It blurred the line between outside and inside, making the environment feel inescapable. You reach for your coat. Your hands move quickly now, guided by habit rather than thought. Layers are pulled into place, secured tightly, each movement precise. There is no time for hesitation, no room for error. Nearby, someone speaks. Short phrases, clear. Instructions? Perhaps. Though you cannot make out the exact words, the tone is enough, calm but firm, carrying the weight of experience. You move toward the ladder. The ship shifts again as you approach. The angle subtle but persistent. Each step requires attention, your body adjusting instinctively to maintain balance. The wood beneath your feet creaks louder now, responding to the increased strain. You climb. The air grows colder with each rung, the scent of oil fading, replaced by the sharper bite of the outside world. The sounds intensify as well, less muffled, more direct. You reach the hatch. It opens with effort. The wind greets you immediately, stronger than before, carrying fine shards of ice that strike against your face and clothing. The darkness outside feels deeper, more active, as though the storm has given it form. You step onto the deck. The scene is in motion. Ice shifts around the ship in slow, powerful movements, large plates pressing against one another with grinding force. The vessel itself responds, creaking and adjusting, its structure absorbing the pressure in ways that feel both resilient and fragile. You hold on to a nearby line, steadying yourself. The wind pushes against you, not violently but persistently, adding another layer of challenge to an already unstable environment. The cold is sharper here, intensified by movement and exposure. You look out. There is no clear horizon, only darkness, broken by the faint outlines of shifting ice, barely visible in the dim light. The storm is not defined by towering waves or heavy rain, but by pressure, motion, and sound. It is relentless. Historical records from Arctic expeditions often emphasize how different these storms felt compared to those in open seas. Without waves to crash against the hull, the danger came from the ice itself, its slow, immense force capable of crushing even well-built ships if conditions aligned. You feel the weight of that possibility. Not fear, not fully, but awareness. The crew moves around you, each person taking their place, responding to the situation with practiced efficiency. Voices carry through the wind, brief and purposeful, guiding actions without unnecessary noise. You remain at your position. Alert! The ship shifts again, then steadies slightly, as though finding a temporary balance within the surrounding ice. The sounds continue, though less sharply now, the earlier intensity giving way to a sustained pressure that feels more controlled. For now, you exhale slowly. The breath vanishes into the cold. Sleep feels distant again, replaced by the immediate demands of the moment. Yet you know it will return, as it always does, shaped by circumstances beyond your control. And as the Arctic storm presses on around you, you stand within it, suspended between rest and readiness, part of a fragile system holding steady against the vast, shifting world of ice. You return below deck long after the worst of the movement has eased, though the tension lingers in your body. The climb down feels slower this time, each step carrying the weight of cold and effort. When the hatch closes above you, the wind fades, replaced by the familiar stillness of the hold. But the cold follows. It always does. You pause for a moment at the base of the ladder, letting your breathing settle. The air here feels thicker, though not warmer in any meaningful sense. It presses gently against your face, carrying the layered scent of oil, wool, and human presence. Your breath is visible, even here. You exhale slowly, watching the faint cloud form and drift upward before disappearing into the dim light. Others have returned as well, their movements quieter now, subdued after the activity above. The space fills once more with the soft rustle of fabric and the low murmur of voices. You move back to your hammock. It hangs where you left it, swaying slightly from the earlier disturbance. You steady it with one hand, then ease yourself inside, careful not to disrupt the fragile balance of the room. The fabric accepts you again, dipping gently beneath your weight. You pull your coverings close. The warmth they offer feels thinner now. Your body has lost heat during the watch, and it will take time to rebuild it. You tuck the edges carefully, sealing small pockets of air around you, trapping what warmth remains. It is a slow process, requiring patience rather than force. Your breath gathers around you. Each exhale adds a trace of moisture to the air, which quickly cools and settles. Over time, this creates a faint layer of frost on nearby surfaces. It is subtle, almost unnoticeable at first, but it accumulates. You touch the fabric near your face. It feels slightly stiff. Sailors often found that their bedding would freeze during the night, especially in the coldest conditions. Moisture from breath and body heat would seep into the material, then solidify as temperatures dropped, By morning, blankets and clothing could become rigid, requiring careful handling. Historians still debate how crews managed this challenge over extended voyages. Some suggest frequent drying near limited heat sources, while others believe sailors simply endured the discomfort, adapting as best they could. The evidence remains incomplete. You shift slightly. The hammock responds with its familiar motion, though it feels less fluid now, as if the fabric itself has stiffened. The change is small but noticeable. It reminds you that even the simplest elements of rest are affected by the cold. Nearby, someone coughs again. The sound is sharper this time, carrying a dryness that speaks of the environment's toll. You listen briefly, then let the noise fade into the background. There is little to be done in the moment. You focus on your breathing. Slow even, your breath condenses again, forming a faint cloud that brushes against your face before disappearing. Over time, this cycle repeats, each exhale contributing to the gradual cooling of the surrounding fabric. It is a quiet process, relentless. Some sailors developed small habits to reduce this effect, turning their faces away from their coverings or using cloth to redirect their breath. Others found these measures insufficient, the cold asserting itself regardless of effort. You consider adjusting. Then remain still. Movement would release the warmth you have begun to rebuild. Instead, you draw your arms closer to your body, tucking your hands beneath your layers once more. The position feels familiar now, almost instinctive. Your feet remain cold. They always do. You flex them gently, encouraging circulation. Though the effect is limited, the layers help, but they cannot fully counter the environment. It is a constant negotiation, one that never fully resolves. The lantern above flickers softly. Its light reflects faintly off the surfaces around you, catching on small patches of frost that have formed along the beams and fabric. The effect is subtle, creating a faint shimmer that shifts with the movement of the flame. You watch it briefly, then close your eyes. Sleep approaches again, slower this time. Shaped by the recent activity and the lingering cold, your body resists at first, holding on to a state of alertness that has not yet fully faded. You let it pass. Gradually, the sounds of the ship return to their quieter rhythm, the earlier intensity replaced by a steady, subdued presence. The creaks are softer now, the movements less pronounced. The storm has eased, though the memory of it remains. You feel it in your muscles, a lingering tension. Your breathing slows further, your body settling into the hammock's curve. The fabric, though slightly stiff, still supports you, holding you in place as you drift toward rest. Outside, the Arctic night continues unchanged, vast and indifferent. Inside, you lie surrounded by faint frost, your breath marking the air in quiet cycles. Sleep comes, not deeply, but enough, and as you drift once more, your breath continues its silent work, shaping the very fabric around you, leaving traces of your presence in the cold, still air of the ship's hold. You wake again to stillness, though it is not the comforting kind. It feels heavier now, as if the air itself has settled into a quiet, unmoving weight. For a moment, you remain wrapped in your coverings, unsure whether you have truly slept or simply drifted in place. Then you try to move. The fabric resists, not entirely, just enough to notice her. You shift your arm and feel a faint stiffness where the blanket folds around you. The material does not flow as it did before. Instead, it holds its shape, slightly rigid, as though it has forgotten how to bend. You touch it with your fingers, cold, firm. The frost has taken hold. During the long Arctic nights, moisture from breath and body heat often transformed bedding into something closer to a shell than a covering. It did not happen all at once. It built gradually, layer by layer, until the softness of fabric gave way to a thin, brittle structure. You pull the blanket closer. It crackles softly. The sound is quiet, but unmistakable, like the faint breaking of thin ice. You pause, listening, as if the material might respond again. It does not. It simply holds, shaped by the cold that surrounds you. Sailors often describe this transformation with a mix of frustration and resignation. Bedding, meant to provide comfort, became another challenge to manage. Yet even in its frozen state, it still served a purpose, trapping what little warmth it could. You shift your shoulders carefully. The hammock sways beneath you, though the motion feels slightly restrained, as if the stiffness of the materials has dampened its movement. Around you, others begin to stir, their own coverings responding in similar ways. A series of soft cracks follows, not from the ship this time, from the blankets. It is a peculiar sound, one that blends into the environment until it becomes familiar. The breaking of frost within fabric, the subtle release of tension as movement returns to what had been held still. You sit up slowly. The blanket resists again, then yields, its structure loosening just enough to allow movement. The air meets your face at once, colder than before, as the trapped warmth escapes. You inhale sharply. The cold settles in your chest. Historical accounts from Arctic expeditions often mention the discomfort of frozen bedding. Though the details vary, some sailors attempted to warm their coverings near limited heat sources, while others relied solely on body heat to soften them over time. Neither method offered complete relief. Historians still debate how effective these strategies were. Given the constraints of space and resources aboard early vessels, the lack of consistent heating made such efforts difficult, and the results likely differed from one voyage to another. You run your hand along the inside of the blanket. The texture changes as you move, from stiff to slightly pliable, then back again. It is uneven, shaped by where your body had been and where the cold had settled more deeply. This pattern becomes familiar over time, a map of warmth and exposures. You swing your legs down. The floor greets you with its usual chill, though it feels sharper now after the partial insulation of the hammock. You steady yourself, allowing your body to adjust before standing fully. Nearby, someone shakes out their blanket. The motion produces a sharper crack, followed by a soft scattering sound as tiny fragments of frost fall away. They catch the lantern light briefly, glinting like fine dust before disappearing into the shadows. It is almost beautiful in a quiet, unexpected way. Some sailors noted this effect in their journals, describing the way frost would form intricate patterns on fabric, only to break apart with the slightest movement. It was a small detail, easily overlooked, yet it remained in memory. You lift your own blanket slightly. The stiffness remains, though it has begun to soften where your body heat has reached. You consider shaking it out as well, then decide against it. The warmth it holds is too valuable to release all at once. You wrap it closer instead. Carefully, the lantern flickers above, its light catching on the edges of frost that still cling to the fabric. The effect is subtle, creating a faint shimmer that shifts with each movement. It is a reminder of how deeply the cold has penetrated this space. You exhale slowly. Your breath joins the cycle again. Moisture enters the air, cools and settles, continuing the process that has shaped your surroundings. It is unavoidable, a constant interaction between body and environment. You begin to move more freely now. The stiffness lessens with each small adjustment, the fabric gradually returning to something closer to its intended form. It is not immediate, but it is steady. There is a quiet patience in this, a recognition that comfort here is always temporary, always in flux. You glance around the hold. Others are doing the same, each person managing their own space, their own coverings, their own balance between warmth and movement. There is little conversation, only the soft sounds of fabric shifting and breath moving through cold air. You settle back once more, not fully lying down, just enough to rest. The blanket, though still touched by frost, now yields more easily, its stiffness reduced by warmth and motion. It wraps around you again, imperfect but functional, holding what heat it can. Sleep lingers at the edge of your awareness, waiting. And as you close your eyes once more, surrounded by the faint crackle of thawing fabric and the steady glow of lantern light, you drift back into a quiet, uneasy rest, shaped by the delicate balance between warmth and ice. You notice the difference before you fully understand it. It is subtle, almost easy to miss, yet once felt, it lingers in your awareness. The air shifts slightly as you move deeper into the ship, passing beyond the crowded rows of hammocks toward a quieter section. The space opens just a little, enough to matter. Here, the beams feel less oppressive, the ceiling a touch higher, the arrangement more deliberate, the lantern light is steadier. Protected from drafts that ripple through the main hold, even the sounds seem muted, softened by thicker walls and fewer bodies. You pause, taking it in. This is where the officers sleep. Not in luxury, not by any generous definition, but in conditions that offer small advantages. A partition separates this area from the rest, creating a sense of enclosure that feels almost private compared to the shared quarters you have grown used to. You step closer, carefully. The bedding here is arranged differently. Not hammocks, but fixed bunks built into the structure of the ship. They are narrow, confined, yet stable, lacking the constant sway that defines the sleeping experience elsewhere. You run your hand along the edge of one. The wood feels smoother, less worn. These bunks were often reserved for captains and higher-ranking officers, reflecting the hierarchy that persisted even in the harshest environments. Historical records suggest that while all aboard faced the same Arctic conditions, distinctions in comfort remained, subtle but significant. You notice the layering, thicker blankets, better furs. They are not immune to the cold, but they offer improved insulation, a slight edge against the relentless environment. The materials appear more carefully maintained, less frayed, so suggesting fewer hands have relied on them over time. You listen. The sounds here are different. Still present, but softened. The creaking of the ship reaches this space with less intensity. The distant cracks of ice more muted. It creates an illusion of calm, a buffer between the individual and the surrounding world. You imagine sleeping here. The thought lingers. Would it feel safer, warmer, or simply quieter? Some sailors believe that officers benefited not only from better materials, but from reduced exposure to noise and movement, allowing for more consistent rest. Others argued that the difference was minimal, that the Arctic equalized all conditions in the end. Historians still debate how much advantage these quarters truly provided during long winter voyages. While structural differences are evident, personal accounts vary widely, suggesting that perception played as much a role as reality. You notice a sauté-serté, the small deal, a curtain. It hangs loosely beside one of the bunks, offering a measure of privacy that does not exist elsewhere on the ship. It is simple, functional, yet it marks a clear boundary between shared and individual space. You reach out slightly, then stop. It feels like crossing a line. Instead, you observe from where you both stand, aware of the quiet distinction that defines this area. The air smells different here as well, less concentrated, carrying fewer layers of human presence. It is still thick with oil and wood, but lighter somehow. You shift your speckut. The floor creaks softly beneath you. Though the sound seems to fade more quickly in this enclosed space, it does not travel as far, does not echo in the same way. Everything feels contained. A faint movement draws your attention. Someone stirs within one of the bunks, turning slightly beneath their coverings. The fabric rustles, then settles, the motion brief and controlled. Even in rest, there is a sense of restraint here, a quiet order that mirrors the structure of command. You step back, returning to the boundary. There is no invitation to remain, no need to linger. This space exists within the same ship, yet apart from it, defined by subtle differences that shape the experience of those within. You turn, the main hold waits behind you. The sounds grow louder as you move away from the partition, the familiar creaks and murmurs returning to full presence. The air thickens again, the scent of shared space reclaiming its place. You feel the contrast. Clearly, your hammock comes back into view, suspended among the others, moving gently in response to the constant, quiet motion of the ship. It is less stable, less private, yet it is yours. You approach it. The fabric sways slightly as you near, acknowledging your returner. You steady it with one hand, then ease yourself inside once more, settling into its familiar curve. The difference lingers in your mind, not as resentment, but as observation. Even here, in the frozen reaches of the Arctic, structure and hierarchy shape the smallest aspects of life, including something as essential as sleep. Yet the cold remains constant, pressing against all equally, reminding you that no space is entirely separate from its reach. You pull your coverings closer, the warmth gathers slowly. Around you, the others continue their quiet routines, their movements blending into the steady rhythm of the ship. The brief glimpse of another world fades, replaced by the reality you know. You close your eyes. The hammock sways. The sounds return. And within this shared, though imperfect space, you drift once more toward rest, carrying with you the quiet knowledge that even small differences can shape the way one sleeps in the heart of the Arctic night. You begin to understand that not every night offers even the fragile certainty of a hammock. Some voyages push beyond routine, beyond prepared spaces, into conditions where sleep must be improvised, shaped entirely by circumstance. Tonight feels like one of those nights. The ship has shifted again, not violently, but enough to disturb the usual arrangements. Certain areas are no longer comfortable, or safe, or simply accessible. You sense it in the movements around you, the quiet adjustments, the searching for new places to rest. Nothing's fixed here. You step carefully across the hold, noticing how the balance of the space has changed. A slight tilt alters everything, from the way objects rest to the way bodies must position themselves. What once felt stable now feels uncertain, requiring constant awareness. You find an open spot near a support beam. It is not ideal, but it will do. Improvised sleeping spaces were common during Arctic expeditions, especially when ships became trapped in ice or damaged by pressure. Historical accounts describe sailors resting wherever they could, on crates, along walls, even on the deck itself when necessary. Comfort was secondary to availability. You lower yourself slowly. The wood beneath you is hard, colder than the suspended fabric of a hammock. It draws warmth away quickly, forcing you to adjust your layers with greater care. You pull your coat tighter, tucking its edges beneath your body to create a barrier. It helps a little. You lean against the beam. The surface is solid, unmoving, offering a sense of stability that contrasts with the subtle sway of the ship. It feels grounding, though not particularly comfortable. Your body must adapt to its shape, finding points of rest within its rigidity. You shift once, then again, small adjustments. Nearby, others are doing the same, settling into positions that vary widely. Some lie flat, wrapped tightly in their coverings. Others sit upright, backs against walls or beams, heads tilted forward or to the side. Each posture reflects a compromise between comfort and necessity. There is no uniformity, only adaptation. You notice the sounds. Different now. Without the coordinated sway of hammocks, movements create sharper, more localized noises, a boot scraping wood, fabric brushing against a beam, a quiet exhale that seems louder in the stillness. It feels less fluid, more fragmented. Some sailors believe that sleeping in such conditions disrupted rest more than any environmental factor. The lack of consistent support combined with uneven surfaces made it difficult to achieve even shallow sleep. Others argued that exhaustion eventually overcame discomfort regardless of position. Historians still debate how frequently these improvised arrangements occurred during the long Arctic voyages. While some records emphasize their necessity, others suggest they were less common, depending on the ship's condition and the severity of the environment. You rest your head carefully. The angle is not ideal, but it is manageable. You pull your coverings closer, wrapping them tightly around your shoulders and chest. The layers press against you, creating small pockets of warmth that build slowly over time. It is a familiar process, though the setting is different. You close your eyes. The hardness beneath you remains. It does not fade. Instead, your body begins to adjust, distributing weight in ways that reduce discomfort. Muscles tense slightly, then relax, finding a balance that allows rest without full ease. You listen. The ship continues its quiet conversation with the ice outside, though the sounds feel more distant now, less integrated into your immediate experience. Your focus shifts inward, toward the sensations of your own body and the space you occupy. A faint draft passes through. It brushes against your feel, cooler than the surrounding air. You turn slightly, angling your body to reduce exposure. The movement is small but effective, preserving the warmth you have gathered. These details matter. They always do. There are stories of sailors who developed preferred positions for such nights, small techniques that improved comfort in subtle ways. Some leaned against specific parts of the ship where the wood retained more warmth. Others used personal items to create makeshift padding, adding a thin layer between themselves and the cold surface. You consider doing the same, then remain still. Movement risks losing what little warmth you have gained. Instead, you focus on maintaining your current position, allowing your body to settle further into its temporary arrangements. Your breathing slows. Gradually, the sounds around you soften as others begin to drift into rest, their movements diminishing, their presence becoming quieter. The space, though less structured, finds its own rhythm, shaped by the shared need for sleep. You feel the weight of the day, the accumulated fatigue. It presses gently against your awareness, guiding you toward rest despite the discomfort. Your mind begins to loosen its grip on the present, drifting toward that familiar edge where thought fades and sensation softens. The beam at your back remains firm, unyielding, yet it supports you. In its own way, you allow your body to accept it, to work with its shape rather than against it. The tension eases slightly, enough to create a fragile sense of balance. Sleep approaches, not comfortably, but steadily, and as you drift into this improvised rest, surrounded by others who have done the same, you become part of a quiet adaptation, a shared response to conditions that refuse to remain constant. Here, in the shifting interior of a ship held by ice, you find rest not in design but in necessity, shaped moment by the world around you. You feel the warmth before you fully understand its source. It spreads slowly through your chest, not the deep, lasting warmth of layered wool or shared body heat, but something quicker, more fleeting. It begins as a gentle glow, then rises, softening the edges of the cold that surrounds you. A cup rests in your hand. You do not remember taking it, but here it is. The liquid inside is dark, faintly steaming, carrying a sharp and familiar scent. Not pleasant, not entirely harsh, but unmistakable. Spirits diluted just enough to be drinkable, offered at the end of a long watch or before uncertain rest. You lift it slightly. The warmth reaches your fingers. It feels good. Sailors often relied on alcohol during Arctic voyages, not only for morale but as a perceived aid against the cold. It was distributed in controlled amounts, sometimes as part of daily rations, sometimes reserved for moments of particular strain. You take a small sip. The liquid burns lightly as it moves down your throat, leaving a trail of warmth that spreads outward. For a moment, the cold seems to retreat, pushed back by this sudden internal heat. It is deceptive. You know this. Even if the sensation is a welcome, some sailors believe strongly in the warming effects of alcohol, treating it as a necessary tool for survival. Others, particularly those with more experience, recognized its limits, understanding that while it created a feeling of warmth, it could actually increase heat loss over time. Historians still debate how widely this understanding was shared among early Arctic crews. Records suggest both perspectives existed, often side by side, shaped by personal experience and traditions. You take another sip. Smaller this time. The warmth lingers, though less intensely, settling into your chest and spreading outward in gentle waves. Your muscles relax slightly, tension easing in ways that feel almost immediate. It is comforting, briefly. Around you, others do the same, cups passing quietly from hand to hand, each person taking what is offered, then returning to their place. The ritual is simple, unspoken, yet consistent, a shared moment before rest. You notice the change in the air. Subtle. The scent of spirits mixes with the usual layers of oil and wool, adding a sharper note that cuts through the heaviness. It does not last long, but it leaves an impression, marking this moment as different from the others. You hold the cup for a moment longer. The warmth against your hands is almost as valuable as the drink itself. In a place where heat is scarce, even small sources become significant. You finish it. Slowly, the last of the liquid disappears, leaving behind a lingering heat that begins to fade almost as soon as it settles. You feel it receding, the cold pressing gently back into place, reclaiming the space it had briefly surrendered. It was never meant to last. There are stories of sailors who relied too heavily on such moments, seeking comfort in repeated measures that offered diminishing returns. Others avoided it entirely, preferring to rely on physical methods of warmth that proved more consistent. You set the cup aside, carefully. It makes a soft sound against the wood, barely noticeable in the quiet of the hold. The moment passes, the ritual complete, and the space returns to its usual rhythm. You adjust your coverings. The warmth from the drink has softened your awareness of the cold, making the fabric feel slightly more yielding, more accommodating. It is a temporary effect, but it eases the transition into rest. You lie back, or lean, depending on your position. The support beneath you remains unchanged, firm and unyielding, so that yet your body responds differently now, less tense, more willing to settle. Your breathing slows. The lingering warmth spreads faintly, then begins to fade, leaving behind a subtle trace rather than a strong presence. It is enough to ease you into the first stages of rest, smoothing the edges of discomfort. Some sailors believe that this ritual also helped quiet the mind, reducing the sharpness of thought that could interfere with sleep. Others found it had little effect, their minds remaining active despite the warmth. You find yourself somewhere in between, calmer, but still aware. The lantern flickers above, its light steady but alive, casting familiar shadows that move gently across the space. The sounds of the ship continue, unchanged, a constant backdrop to every moment. You close your eyes. The warmth fades further. The cold returns, but not as sharply as before. You settle into your position, allowing your body to adjust, to find balance once more within the layers of fabric and the confined space. The memory of warmth lingers just enough to carry you forward. Sleep approaches again, quietly, and as you drift toward it, you carry with you the brief comfort of that shared ritual, a small, fleeting warmth in a world defined by cold. You wake into silence so complete it feels unfamiliar. Not the usual quiet filled with creaks and distant cracks, but something deeper, heavier, as though the world outside has paused entirely. You lie still, listening. Nothing answers. The ship does not groan. The ice does not shift. Even the faint tapping you've grown used to has vanished. For a moment, it feels as if you have slipped into a space outside of time where sound itself has been suspended. It is unsettling. More than noise ever was. You open your eyes slowly, half expecting the darkness to press closer in response. The lantern still burns, though its flame seems steadier than usual, untouched by drafts or movement. Shadows remain fixed, no longer stretching or bending with the rhythm of the ship. Everything is still. You sit up slightly, sir. The hammock barely moves. This absence of motion feels wrong, almost unnatural after so many nights defined by constant adjustment. Your body, accustomed to subtle shifts, searches for them instinctively, finding none. You take a breath. It sounds too loud. The exhale echoes faintly in the confined space, a reminder that you are not alone. Even if the environment suggests otherwise, around you, others sleep, their presence marked only by the slow rise and fall of breath. No one speaks. No one stirs. Some sailors describe moments like this as the most difficult to endure. The Arctic, when silent, could feel more oppressive than when it moved and spoke. Without sound, there was nothing to anchor the mind. Nothing to confirm that the world continued beyond the thin walls of the ship. You feel it now, a quiet tension. It settles at the edge of your awareness, not quite fear, but something close. The absence of familiar sounds creates space for other thoughts to emerge, ones that are less grounded, more uncertain. You glance toward the beams above. They remain still, unchanging. Historians still debate how prolonged silence affected the mental state of early Arctic sailors. Some accounts suggest it led to heightened anxiety or restlessness, while others describe a strange sense of as if the world had finally ceased its constant demands. You are not sure which you feel, perhaps both. You shift your position slightly, testing the space around you. The hammock responds with a minimal sway, quickly settling back into stillness. The motion feels almost insignificant, swallowed by the larger quiet that surrounds it. You listen again. Still nothing. There are stories of sailors who believed such silence carried meaning, that it signalled a change in conditions beyond what could be seen or felt. Others dismiss these ideas, attributing them to imagination shaped by isolation. You consider this, then let it go. The mind seeks patterns, especially in environments where control is limited. It is natural to assign significance to what feels unusual, even when no clear cause presents itself. You close your eyes. The darkness behind them feels deeper now, less interrupted by external cues. Without sound to guide your awareness, your thoughts begin to move more freely, drifting between memory and imagination. You hear something, faint, so faint it might not be real, a whisper of movement, barely perceptible, like the distant shifting of something far beyond the hull. You hold your breath, focusing, trying to isolate the sound. It does not return. Perhaps it never existed. This is how the mind works here, filling the silence with fragments, testing the boundaries between perception and imagination. It is not entirely reliable, yet it is all you have. You exhale slowly. The sound feels louder again. It anchors you, a simple human rhythm in a space that has lost its usual markers. You focus on it, letting it guide your awareness back to the present, to the physical reality of your body within the hammock. Your breathing steadies. The tension eases slightly. Around you, the others remain still, their presence quiet but undeniable. The shared space, though silent, holds a sense of continuity, a reminder that you are part of something larger than your own thoughts. The lantern flickers once, just once. The flame bends briefly, then returns to its steady shape. The movement is small, almost insignificant, yet it breaks the stillness just enough to shift your perception. The world has not stalled, it has only paused. You feel it now. A subtle return, a faint creak from the hull, a distant almost inaudible crack from the ice. The sounds are minimal, but they are there, re-establishing the familiar pattern you have come to rely on. Relief comes quietly, not as a sudden release, but as a gradual easing of the tension that has settled in your chest. You close your eyes again. The silence remains, but it is no longer absolute. It carries traces of the world beyond, enough to ground you, enough to allow rest. Sleep returns slowly, cautiously, and within this delicate balance between silence and sound, you drift once more, held by the quiet presence of the ship and the vast, unseen Arctic beyond. You wake to a feeling rather than a sound, a subtle pressure that seems to surround the ship from every direction. It is not sudden, not violent, but constant, like a steady hand pressing against the hull and refusing to release. You remain still, sensing it. The air feels heavier, as though the entire vessel has settled into a deeper hold within the ice. The familiar creaks are slower now, drawn out, each one carrying more weight than before. They do not come and go as quickly, they linger. You open your eyes. The lantern burns as always, though its light seems dimmer, not from weakness, but from the way the space absorbs it. The shadows appear thicker, less willing to move, as if the ship itself has grown tired. You shift slightly. The hammock responds, though more reluctantly than before, its motion dampened by the subtle angle of the ship. You feel it now, a slight tilt that was not there before, a quiet reminder that your surroundings have changed. The ship is trapped, not just surrounded, held. Sailors in Arctic expeditions often faced this moment, when the ice closed in completely, locking the vessel in place for weeks or even months. Movement ceased, replaced by a long, uncertain stillness that redefined daily life. You sit up slowly. The air carries a faint scent of cold wood and damp fabric, layered with the presence of those around you. It is familiar, yet heavier now, as though the confinement has intensified every aspect of it. You listen. The sounds are different, less varied. The distant cracks have softened, replaced by a steady, low pressure that hums through the structure. It is not loud, but it is constant, a reminder that the ice is no longer shifting freely. It is holding you. You swing your legs down. The floor feels slightly angled beneath your feet, enough to alter your balance if you're not careful. You adjust instinctively, your body compensating for the change without conscious thought. Others are waking. You hear the soft rustle of fabric, the quiet movements of those who have sensed the shift as you have. There is no urgency, no sudden alarm, only a shared awareness that something fundamental has changed. You stand, slowly. The space feels smaller now, though nothing has physically moved within it. The knowledge of being held in place alters perception, compressing the environment in subtle ways. You take a step, then another. The wood creaks beneath you, responding to your weight with a sound that feels deeper than before. It resonates through the structure, echoing faintly as if the ship has become more rigid, less forgiving. You reach for the ladder. Your hand meets the familiar cold of the wood, though it feels more solid, more grounded. The ship no longer sways with the same fluid motion. It resists. You climb. Each rung brings you closer to the surface, to the place where the change will be most visible. The air sharpens as you ascend, carrying the unmistakable scent of ice and open cold. You pause briefly, then continue. The hatch opens with effort, as though something beyond it presses inward. You push, and it yields, allowing a narrow path to the deck above. You step out. The sight before you confirms what you already felt. The ship is encased. Ice surrounds it completely, stretching in every direction, unbroken and unmoving. The surface is uneven, ridged in places where pressure has forced layers upward, forming frozen waves that have solidified in mid-motion. There is no water in sight, only ice. You take a breath. The air is still. No wind, no drift. The silence here feels different from before. Not empty, but contained, as though the environment has settled into a long pause. The storm has passed, but it has left something behind: immobility. Some sailors describe this phase as both a relief and a burden. The absence of shifting ice reduced immediate danger, yet it introduced a new challenge: the uncertainty of how long the ship would remain trapped and what that meant for survival. Historians still debate how crews adapted psychologically to these extended periods of immobility. Some accounts suggest routine and discipline helped maintain stability, while others hint at growing tension and unease as time stretched on. You walk a few steps along the deck. The surface beneath your boots is firm, unyielding, no longer responding to the subtle movements of the sea. The ship feels anchored, though not by choice. You look out. The horizon blends into the sky, both defined by the same pale darkness that has become familiar. There is no clear boundary, no sense of distance, only an endless expanse of frozen stillness. You return below. The hatch closes behind you, sealing the cold outside once more. Inside, the hold feels different now, shaped by the knowledge of what surrounds it. You move back to your place. The hammock waits. You settle into it again, the fabric adjusting beneath you, though its motion feels more restrained, less fluid than before. The ship no longer rocks you gently, it holds you steady. You pull your coverings close. The warmth builds slowly, as it always does, though the process feels more deliberate now, as if the environment demands greater effort for the same result. You close your eyes. The sounds have changed. The motion has changed. The very nature of your rest has shifted. Yet the need for sleep remains constant, guiding you back toward that fragile state where body and mind recover what they can. And as you drift once more into rest, you carry with you the quiet certainty that the world outside has stilled, holding you in place within its vast, frozen grasp. You become aware of the air before anything else. Not its temperature, which remains consistently cold, but its weight, its presence as something shared and slowly changing. It fills your lungs with a familiar mixture that has grown denser over time. You inhale. It carries layers. Oil from the lantern, salt embedded in clothing, damp wool that never fully dries, and beneath it all, the unmistakable scent of human bodies confined within a limited space for far too long. It is not overwhelming, overwhelming, but it is constant. You lie still for a moment, letting the sensation settle. The air feels thicker now than it did in earlier days, less fresh, more lived in. Each breath reminds you that this space is closed, that what enters it remains, circulating slowly. You turn your head slightly. The fabric near your face brushes against your cheek, carrying its own subtle scent, shaped by repeated use and the quiet accumulation of moisture and time. It is familiar now, almost comforting in its consistency. Sailors often noted the atmosphere below deck during long Arctic voyages, describing it as heavy, sometimes oppressive, yet also strangely grounding. It marked the space as inhabited, as maintained, even when conditions outside felt vast and indifferent. You exhale slowly. The breath lingers. For a brief moment, you see it, a faint cloud forming in the cold air before dissolving into the larger mixture. It joins everything else, contributing to the gradual layering that defines this environment. You sit up slightly. The hammock sways, though less than before, its movement muted by the stillness of the trapped ship. Around you, others rest or stir quietly, their presence adding to the shared atmosphere in ways that are subtle but undeniable. You notice the sounds: breathing, shifting fabric, the faint creak of wood. They blend together, forming a quiet backdrop. The smell intensifies slightly as you move, disturbed air carrying new layers toward you. It is not unpleasant, not in the way you might expect. Instead, it feels lived in, a sign of endurance rather than neglect. You adjust your coverings. The fabric releases a faint scent as it shifts, something earthy, grounded, tied to the materials themselves. Wool, especially, carries a distinct smell when worn for long periods, one that becomes part of the environment rather than separate from it. Historians still debate how sailors coped with these conditions over extended voyages. Some accounts suggest regular attempts at ventilation, opening hatches when possible to refresh the air. Others imply that such opportunities were limited, leaving crews to adapt to the atmosphere as it evolved. You consider this, the idea of fresh air feels distant, almost abstract. You take another breath. The weight remains, yet your body accepts it. Adaptation happens quietly here, without announcement or recognition. What once might have felt oppressive becomes normal, integrated into your awareness without resistance. You lean back again. The hammock supports you, its familiar curve guiding your posture into a position that conserves energy. Your body relaxes slightly, responding to the consistency of the environment. A faint cough sounds nearby, then another. It echoes softly, a reminder that the air, while breathable, carries its own challenges. Dryness, cold, and confinement all leave their mark, shaping the way bodies respond over time. You listen briefly, then let it fade. There is little to be done in the moment. The conditions are shared, accepted, endured collectively rather than individually altered. You close your eyes. The scent remains. It does not disappear with the absence of sight. Instead, it becomes more pronounced, filling the space where visual cues once guided your awareness. You focus on your breathing, letting it anchor you within the layered atmosphere. Inhale, exhale. Each cycle blends you further into the environment, reducing the distinction between self and space. You are part of it now, just as it is part of you. There are small variations, moments when the scent shifts slightly, when a draft carries a different note through the hold, perhaps from the upper deck or a newly opened space. These changes are subtle, fleeting, yet noticeable. You sense one now, a faint trace of colder air. Cleaner! It passes quickly, leaving behind the familiar density that defines this place. You recognize it as a reminder of what exists beyond the hull, even if it remains out of reach. Your breathing slows. The weight of the air becomes less noticeable as your mind begins to drift. What once required attention now fades into the background, allowing space for rest to return. You settle deeper into the hammock. The fabric holds you, the air surrounds you, and within this shared, layered atmosphere, you drift once more towards sleep, carried not by fresh winds or open skies, but by the quiet persistence of life within the confines of a frozen ship. You notice the change in sound before anything else. It is subtle at first, a low, uneven rhythm that does not match the breathing or movement of the men around you. It carries a different texture, softer in some moments, sharper in others. You listen more closely. Oh, there it is again. A quiet shuffle, a faint huff of breath. Not human. You open your eyes slowly, adjusting to the lantern's steady glow. Shapes resolve around you, familiar at first, then slightly altered. Near the far end of the hold, movement catches your attention, low to the ground, deliberate but unhurried. The animals have settled it. Not many, but enough. On some Arctic voyages, sailors shared space with sled dogs or small livestock, depending on the purpose of the expedition. These animals were essential for travel, food, or labour once the ship could no longer move freely. During the long nights, they were often brought below deck. You watch one of them now, a dog, its thick fur dull in the lantern light, curls into itself near a stack of supplies. Its body rises and falls with steady breaths, each exhale producing a faint puff of warmth that lingers briefly before fading. It seems at ease, more than you expected. You shift slightly in your hammock. The motion draws a brief glance from the animal, its eyes catching the light for a moment before closing again. There is no alarm, no tension. It has grown used to this space, just as you have. The air carries a new layer, faint but distinct. Animal scent mixes with the existing atmosphere, adding another dimension to the already complex blend of oil, wool, and human presence. It is not unpleasant, though it is noticeable, especially at first. You inhale. Slowly, the scent settles. Sailors often noted the presence of animals below deck as both a benefit and a complication. The additional body heat they provided could make a measurable difference in such cold conditions, especially in confined spaces where warmth accumulated gradually. You feel it now. A slight increase, not dramatic, but present. Historians still debate how commonly animals were kept within sleeping quarters during Arctic winters. Some accounts suggest it was a practical necessity, while others imply it was avoided when possible due to concerns about space and sanitation. The truth likely varied depending on the situation. You listen again. The sounds continue. Soft breathing, occasional. A quiet scratch against wood. They blend into the environment quickly, becoming part of the background just as the creaks of the ship once did. Your awareness adjusts, incorporating these new elements without resistance. Nearby, another sailor shifts. The hammock sways gently, and the motion carries outward, causing a subtle ripple through the row. One of the animals lifts its head briefly, then lowers it again, unconcerned. There is a calm here, unexpected. You observe the way the animals settle, their bodies instinctively conserving heat, their movements economical and precise. They seem to understand the environment in ways that do not require thought, responding naturally to the conditions that challenge you more directly. You feel a quiet respect for that. A small pause follows. Then stillness. Some sailors believe that the presence of animals improved sleep, not only through added warmth, but through the subtle comfort of companionship. Others found the additional noise and scent disruptive, especially during already difficult nights. You find yourself somewhere between aware but not disturbed. You adjust your covering slightly. The warmth feels more stable now, less fragile than before. It is a small difference, yet it changes the way your body responds, allowing muscles to relax just a little more. Your breathing slows, matching the rhythm around you. Human and animal, a shared cadence. The lantern flickers once, its light catching on the fur of the nearest dog, highlighting its texture before fading back into shadow. The effect is brief, but it draws your attention to the quiet presence that has joined your space. You close your eyes again. The sounds remain. They do not interrupt. They are company. Outside, the ice holds firm. The ship remains still, and within the hold, a new balance has formed. One that includes more than just the crew. It is a subtle shift, yet it changes the atmosphere in ways that are difficult to define. You drift towards sleep, carried by the combined warmth of bodies, the steady rhythm of breathing, and the quiet presence of creatures who share this confined world with you. And in that shared stillness, you find a slightly deeper rest, shaped not only by human endurance, but by the quiet companionship of those who endure alongside you. You begin to notice the change not in darkness, but in its absence. At first, it feels as like a trick of the lantern, a slight brightening that does not quite belong. You keep your eyes closed, unsure whether the difference is real or imagined. Then it grows. Slowly, reluctantly, you open your eyes. The light is different. Not strong, not overwhelming, but present in a way it has not been for many nights. It seeps through small gaps, filtering down from above in faint, pale strands that soften the edges of the hold. You sit up slightly. The hammock sways beneath you. You look toward the hatch. There it is. A suggestion of daylight. After long stretches of darkness, the return of light does not arrive suddenly. It creeps in, almost shy, touching the world in small increments that feel uncertain at first. The Arctic summer begins this way, slowly reclaiming the sky. You feel it in your chest. A quiet shift, Sailors often describe this transition as both welcome and unhandling. The return of light brought relief from the endless night, yet it also disrupted the fragile patterns of rest that had formed in its absence. Or you notice it now? Sleep feels different, less contained or contained. Historians still debate how crews adapted to the Arctic's shifting light cycles, particularly during the transition from winter to summer. Some accounts suggest improved morale, while others indicate increased difficulty maintaining consistent sleep. You swing your legs down, the floor meets you with its familiar chill. Though the space around you feels subtly altered, the lantern still burns, but its light no longer dominates. It blends with the faint glow filtering in from above. You stand slowly. Around you, others are waking as well, their movements carrying a different energy. It is not urgency, not exactly, but something lighter, less burdened by the weight of constant darkness. You move toward the ladder. Each step brings the light closer, sharpening its presence. The air shifts as well, carrying a cleaner edge that hints at the world outside. You pause briefly, then continue. The hatch opens, the brightness meets you. This is not harsh, not blinding, but it feels intense after so long without it. The sky above is pale, almost colourless, stretching in a wide, unbroken expanse. The sun sits low, tracing a slow path along the horizon without ever fully rising or setting. You squint slightly, adjusting. The ice reflects the light, amplifying it, turning the entire landscape into a muted glow that reaches in every direction. Shadows are softer here, less defined, as if the light refuses to commit to a single angle. You step onto the deck. The air feels sharper, cleaner. You take a breath. It fills your lungs differently, carrying less of the enclosed heaviness you've grown used to below deck. It feels almost unfamiliar. This openness, this clarity. You look out. The horizon is visible again, though it blends seamlessly with the sky, creating a continuous line that is difficult to separate. The world feels larger now, less confined, even though the ship remains trapped in ice. You feel the difference. In your body, in your mind. Some sailors welcome this change, finding renewed energy in the presence of light. Others struggled, their sleep disrupted by the constant brightness that refused to fade. Without darkness, the body loses its usual signals, making rest more difficult to achieve. You consider this. Already you feel it. A subtle resistance to returning below. You remain on deck for a moment longer. The light surrounds you, soft yet persistent, altering your perception of time and space. It feels as though the day has no beginning or end, only a continuous stretch of pale illumination. You close your eyes briefly. The brightness lingers, even through your eyelids. You open them again. The effect remains. You return below deck. The transition feels more pronounced now, the dim interior contrasting sharply with the light above. The lantern's glow seems weaker, less necessary, though it continues to burn. You move back to your hammock. It sways gently as you approach, unchanged in form yet altered in context. The space feels different now, less isolated, more connected to the world beyond the hull. You lie down. The fabric supports you as always, but sleep does not come as easily. The memory of light lingers, pressing against your awareness, making it harder to settle into the same patterns that once guided your rest. Your body hesitates, unsure how to respond to this new rhythm. You adjust your coverings. Close your eyes. Breathe slowly. The sounds of the ship remain. The presence of others continues. Yet something has shifted. The balance between light and dark, between wakefulness and rest, has been altered. Sleep will come, eventually, but it will not be the same. And as you lie there, suspended between the fading memory of darkness and the quiet persistence of returning light, you begin to understand that even rest must adapt to the changing face of the Arctic world. You begin to notice that sleep does not simply happen here. It is prepared for, shaped by small, repeated actions that gather meaning over time. Each evening, or what passes for evening, carries its own quiet sequence. You follow it without thinking, almost instinctively. You sit at the edge of your hammock, hands moving slowly over your clothing, checking each layer with deliberate care. The process is not hurried. It cannot be. Every fold, every seam, every overlap holds importance. You smooth the fabric along your arms, then your chest, ensuring that no gaps remain where cold might slip through unnoticed. It is a habit learned through experience, refined night after night until it becomes part of your routine. You pause briefly, a breath, then continue. Sailors developed these rituals as a way to bring some sense of order to an environment that offered very little control. While the Arctic could not be shaped or softened, the preparation for sleep could be managed, creating a small area of predictability. You adjust your socks carefully. Your feet, as always, demand attention. Layers are repositioned, tightened just enough to hold warmth without restricting movement. The balance is delicate, and you feel it through practice rather than thought. Nearby, others perform similar actions. Quietly. There is no need for instruction. Each person knows their own method, their own sequence, shaped by what has worked and what has not. The space fills with soft, repetitive sounds, fabric shifting, hands brushing, small adjustments that carry purpose. You reach for your blanket. The material feels familiar beneath your fingers, its texture shaped by use and time. You lift it slightly, allowing air to move through it, then settle it back into place. This simple act helps redistribute warmth, preventing cold spots from forming too quickly. It is a small detail, but it matters. Historians still debate how structured these routines were among different crews. Some accounts suggest strict discipline, with established practices followed closely. Others imply a more personal approach, with each sailor adapting their own habits over time. You find yourself somewhere in between, guided by both. You tuck the edges of your coverings around you, sealing in the warmth that has begun to gather. The movement is slow, careful, ensuring that the layers overlap correctly. Any gap, no matter how small, can make a difference. You feel it, the gradual build of heat. Your hands move to your face. A scarf is adjusted, positioned to protect against the cold air while still allowing you to breathe comfortably. It is a simple arrangement, yet it requires attention, as too much coverage can create its own discomfort. You pause again, listening. The sounds of the ship remain steady, a constant presence that underlies every action. The creaks, the faint shifts, the distant echoes of ice, all continue, unchanged by your preparation. They become part of it. A background to your ritual. Some sailors believe that these routines did more than prepare the body. They helped settle the mind, creating a transition between wakefulness and rest that made sleep more attainable. Others saw them as purely practical, necessary but without deeper effect. You consider this, then let the thought pass. Your focus returns to the present, to the sequence of movements that guide you toward rest. Each action follows the last, forming a chain that leads naturally to stillness. You lie back, slowly. The hammock receives you, its familiar curve supporting your body as it has many times before. The fabric sways gently, then settles, responding to your weight with quiet consistency. You pull the blanket closer, tighter. The warmth gathers more fully now, held within the layers you have arranged. It is not immediate, but it is reliable, building gradually as your body contributes its own heat. Your breathing slows. The rhythm becomes steady. Inhale, exhale. The ritual continues even here, within stillness, as your body follows patterns it has learned. preparing itself for rest in ways that no longer require conscious thought. The lantern flickers above. Its light remains constant, though it feels less intrusive now, as if your awareness has shifted away from it. The shadows move, but you no longer follow them. You close your eyes. The final step, there is a sense of completion, a quiet acknowledgement that you have done what you can to prepare. The rest is no longer in your control, shaped instead by the environment and the needs of your body. Sleep approaches, gently, and as you drift toward it, you carry with you the comfort of routine, the small, repeated actions that create a space for rest within a world that offers none freely. You wake to discomfort that does not fade with movement. It sits deeper, beneath the surface, a quiet ache that lingers no matter how carefully you adjust your position. At first, you try to ignore it. You shift slightly. The hammock sways. The sensation remains. It is not sharp, not overwhelming, but persistent enough to draw your attention again and again. Your joints feel stiff, your muscles slow to respond, as though rest has not fully reached them. You take a breath. It catches slightly. The air feels drier than before, each inhale carrying a faint irritation that settles in your throat. You swallow, trying to ease it, but the dryness remains, a constant presence that does not quite resolve. You sit up slowly. The motion requires effort. Your body resists in small ways, reminding you that the conditions here do not allow full recovery. Sleep, while necessary, is never complete. It restores only what it can. Nearby, another sailor coughs. The sound is harsher now, deeper, lingering longer before fading. It echoes through the hold, followed by a brief silence that feels heavier than usual. You listen. There are more, not loud, but present. Sailors on long Arctic voyages often faced a range of physical challenges that made rest difficult. Cold, confinement, and limited resources created conditions where minor discomforts could grow into more persistent issues, affecting both sleep and daily function. You feel it now, a quiet wear. Historians still debate how widespread certain illnesses were during early Arctic expeditions. Some accounts describe relatively stable conditions, while others suggest that fatigue, exposure, and poor air quality contributed to ongoing health concerns. You rub your hands together. The friction creates a brief warmth, though it fades quickly. Your fingers feel stiff, less responsive than usual, as if the cold has settled deeper into them overnight. You flex them slowly. Then again, the movement helps, but only slightly. You swing your legs down. The floor meets you with its usual chill, though your body reacts more sharply this time. The sensation travels upward, reinforcing the discomfort that has already taken hold. You stand, carefully. Your balance feels slightly off, not enough to cause concern, but noticeable. You adjust instinctively, your body compensating in small ways to maintain stability. A faint throbbing reaches your feet, not pain, but something close. The layers you wear protect against the worst of the cold, yet they cannot eliminate it entirely. Over time, the exposure leaves its mark, shaping how your body responds to rest and movement. You take a slow breath. It steadies you. The air still feels dry, each inhale carrying that same subtle irritation. You clear your throat quietly, though the sensation returns almost immediately. Around you, others move with similar care. Small adjustments. Measured, sir. No one speaks of it directly, yet the shared experience is evident in the way bodies respond, in the quiet acknowledgement of discomfort that has become part of daily life. You lean briefly against a beam. The support feels grounding, offering a moment of stability as you allow your body to settle. The wood is cold but iso-solid, a constant in an environment defined by change. You close your eyes, just for a moment. The sensation does not disappear, but it softens slightly, becoming less intrusive as your awareness shifts. You focus on your breathing, letting the rhythm guide you back toward a state of calm. Inhale, exhale. The discomfort remains, yet it becomes manageable. Some sailors developed small strategies to cope with these persistent sensations, adjusting their routines, modifying their rest positions, or simply accepting the limitations imposed by the environment. Others struggled more deeply, finding it difficult to adapt. You consider this, then return to the present. Your body begins to adjust again, finding a new balance within the discomfort. It is not ideal, but it is sufficient. The human body, you realize, is capable of enduring more than it might seem. You move back toward your hammock. It sways gently as you approach, unchanged in form, offering the same limited support it always has. You ease into it carefully, allowing your body to settle without sudden movement. The fabric holds you. The warmth gathers slowly. Your breathing steadies once more, though the dryness remains, a subtle reminder of the environment's effect. You pull your coverings closer, seeking what comfort you can within their layers. Sleep lingers at the edge of your awareness, not as an escape, but as a necessity. And as you close your eyes again, you accept the quiet presence of discomfort, allowing it to exist without resistance, trusting that rest, however incomplete, will still come. You do not fully relax when you lie down this time. Something remains active beneath the surface of your thoughts, a quiet tension that does not fade with stillness. It is not tied to the cold or the air or even the lingering discomfort in your body. It is something else. You close your eyes anyway. The hammock sways faintly beneath you, its motion familiar, almost reassuring. The sounds of the ship continue at their usual pace, soft creaks and distant shifts that blend into a steady background. Nothing appears out of place. Yet your mind lingers on what lies beyond. You picture the ice surrounding the ship, vast and unmoving, hiding whatever currents still flow beneath it. The surface appears solid, dependable, yet you know it is not as simple as it seems. There are cracks, pressure lines, hidden spaces. Sailors often carried this awareness with them. Even into sleep, the Arctic was never entirely predictable, and the knowledge of unseen dangers beneath the ice could linger in the mind, shaping rest in subtle ways. You feel it now, a quiet unease. Historians still debate how much of this anxiety affected daily life during the early expeditions. Some accounts suggest that experienced crews learned to set these thoughts aside, trusting in their knowledge and routine. Others hint at a persistent awareness that never fully faded. You turn slightly. The hammock shifts. The movement helps, just a little, redirecting your focus toward the physical sensations of your surroundings. The fabric supports you, the warmth gathers, the sounds continue, yet the thought remains. What lies beneath? You imagine the ship's hull pressed against the ice, the barrier between you and the cold water below. It is strong, carefully built, yet it is still wood, still subject to forces far greater than itself. You take a slow breath. It steadies you. The air feels familiar, the scent of the hold grounding you in the present. You focus on it, letting the physical reality of your environment anchor your thoughts. Still, your mind drifts. You picture the tools used to navigate these waters, the charts, the instruments, the knowledge passed down through generations of sailors. They offer guidance, yet they are not perfect. There are uncertainties. Always. Some sailors found comfort in understanding the limits of their knowledge, accepting that not everything could be predicted. Others found this deeply unsettling, their thoughts returning again and again to what could not be seen. You find yourself between them, aware, but not overwhelmed. Overwhelmed? The ship creaks softly, a familiar sound. It draws your attention back to the present, to the structure that surrounds you, holds you, protects you. You listen to it, allowing the rhythm to replace the wandering of your thoughts. It helps. Gradually, your breathing slows, the tension eases slightly, not disappearing, but becoming less sharp, less insistent. It shifts from the foreground of your awareness to something more distant. You adjust your coverings. The warmth responds. It spreads slowly, creating a small, flexible space within which your body can rest. The sensation is subtle, yet it provides a point of focus, something tangible. You close your eyes more fully, letting the darkness settle. The thoughts do not vanish entirely. They linger at the edges, quieter now, less defined. They no longer demand your attention, though they remain present, part of the background of your mind. This is how rest comes here. Not by clearing the mind completely, but by allowing it to quiet. You listen once more. The ship, the ice, the breath of those around you. All continue, unchanged. The world beyond remains vast and uncertain, filled with elements you cannot see or control. Yet within this confined space you find a measure of stability, enough to support the fragile process of sleep. You exhale slowly. The air moves, the moment passes, and as your awareness softens, drifting further from the questions that linger, you settle once more into a state of quiet rest, held between knowledge and uncertainty, between the known and the unseen. You begin to notice it in the small details first, not in the structure of the ship or the weight of the cold, but in the way those around you prepare for rest. The differences are quiet, subtle, yet they shape the rhythm of the space. You watch without meaning to. A sailor across from you wraps his blanket in a particular way, folding one corner over his shoulder before settling down. Another adjusts his position differently, lying flatter, arms placed at his sides rather than tucked close. These variations matter. Even here, crews on Arctic voyages often came from different regions, bringing with them habits shaped by their own cultures and experiences. The way one person approached sleep could differ significantly from another, even under the same conditions. You notice it more clearly now. The contrast. Some prefer tighter layers, securing every edge to trap warmth as completely as possible. Others leave small gaps, allowing for slight movement, perhaps valuing comfort over strict insulation. Neither approach is entirely right or wrong, just different. You shift slightly in your hammock. The motion carries through the line, and you see how others respond. Some adjust immediately, compensating for the change, while others remain still, allowing the movement to pass without reaction. There is a rhythm to it, but not a single one. Historians still debate how these cultural differences influenced life aboard Arctic vessels. Some accounts suggest that shared hardship led to a blending of practices over time, while others indicate that individuals often held on to their own methods, even in the face of new environments. You consider this as you adjust your own coverings. Your movements follow a pattern you've developed, shaped by what has worked for you rather than by any external instruction. It is a quiet expression of experience, one that does not require explanation. Nearby, you hear a soft murmur, words spoken in a language you do not fully understand, or perhaps in a dialect unfamiliar to you. The tone is gentle, almost soothing, as if the speaker is easing themselves into rest through familiar sounds. It fades quickly, leaving only the rhythm. Some sailors carried small personal rituals into their sleep, gestures or habits that connected them to something beyond the ship. A particular way of lying down, a repeated phrase, a silent moment of reflection. You notice these things now, more than before. They create a layered environment, where each person contributes not only their presence, but their own way of enduring the night. The space becomes a quiet collection of differences, held together by shared necessity. You lean back slightly. The hammock supports you. The familiar sway returns, though it feels less uniform now, shaped by the varied movements of those around you. It is not disruptive, just different. You listen. Breathing patterns vary, some slow and deep, others quicker, more uneven. They overlap, creating a soft, shifting soundscape that reflects the individuality within the group. It is not synchronized, yet it forms a kind of balance. You feel it. a shared space, built from differences. There are stories of crews who struggled with these variations, where conflicting habits led to tension or misunderstanding. Others found that such diversity enriched the experience, offering new ways to adapt and endure. You find it interesting, quietly. Your own routine feels steady, familiar, yet you sense how it has been influenced by what you've observed. Small adjustments, subtle changes, borrowed from others without conscious intent. It is a natural process. Adaptation through observation. You adjust your blanket once more. The movement feels automatic, guided by a combination of your own experience and the quiet influence of those around you. The result is something uniquely yours, yet shaped by the collective. You close your eyes. The sounds continue. Varied, layered. Human. The ship creaks softly. The ice shifts faintly beyond the hull. And within this confined space, a complex pattern of behaviours unfolds, each person contributing their own approach to the shared challenge of rest. You breathe slowly, letting it all settle. The differences no longer stand out as sharply. They blend into the background, becoming part of the environment rather than separate from it. What once seemed distinct now feels integrated. You drift towards sleep, carried not by uniformity, but by the quiet harmony of varied rhythms, each one finding its place within the larger whole. And in that shared, diverse stillness, you find rest once more, shaped by both your own habits and the subtle presence of others who endure the Arctic night in their own ways. You notice the change gradually, not as a sudden warmth, but as a soft easing of the cold that has defined every moment. It begins at the edges, in the air, in the way your breath feels less sharp as it leaves your lungs. You inhale. It feels different. Still cold, but gentler. You sit up slowly in your hammock, sensing the shift in ways that are difficult to name. The fabric beneath you feels slightly more yielding, less rigid than it had been during the deepest cold. The stiffness in your joints has not vanished, but it has softened. You pause, taking it in. The Arctic is loosening its hold, not completely, but enough. Sailors often describe this transition as subtle, almost uncertain at first. After long periods of extreme cold, even a small change in temperature could feel significant, altering both the environment and the body's response to it. You feel it now, a quiet relief. You swing your legs down. The floor meets you with its familiar chill, yet it lacks the biting edge it once carried. Your feet respond more easily, the movement less restricted, the sensation more manageable. You stand carefully. Your balance feels steadier, your muscles more responsive. The small adjustments that once required effort now happen with less resistance. It is not a full return to comfort, but it is a step toward it. You move toward the ladder. The air shifts as you climb, carrying a faint freshness that had been absent before. It is subtle, yet noticeable, a sign that conditions above have changed as well. You reach the hatch, or it opens more easily. The resistance you once felt has lessened, replaced by a smoother motion that suggests reduced pressure from the ice outside. You step onto the deck. The light greets you, brighter now. The sky stretches wide, pale and expansive, with the sun tracing a higher path than before. It does not linger at the horizon as it once did. It rises, slowly but surely, bringing with it a clearer sense of day. You look out. The ice remains, but it has changed. Cracks appear where there were none before, thin lines that stretch across the surface, hinting at movement beneath. The solid stillness has given way to subtle motion, a gradual return to fluidity. You feel it in the air. A slight shift. Historians still debate how quickly crews recognize these changes during Arctic expeditions. Some accounts suggest a keen awareness, developed through experience, while others imply uncertainty, the environment revealing its transitions slowly. You take a breath. It fills your lungs more easily. The scent is cleaner, less confined. carrying traces of open space that had been absent for so long. It feels almost unfamiliar. This return to something closer to what you remember. You remain on deck for a moment. The light surrounds you, no longer tentative, but present with quiet confidence. It changes the way the world appears, sharpening edges, defining shapes that have been lost in darkness. You feel it in your mind, a lifting. Not dramatic, but real. Some sailors describe this phase as a renewal, a return of energy and clarity after the long strain of winter. Others found the transition disorienting, their bodies struggling to adjust to the changing conditions. You consider this, your own experience, it lies somewhere between. You return below. The hold feels different now, though its structure remains the same. The air is lighter, the atmosphere less dense. The lantern still burns, but its presence feels less dominant as natural light begins to reclaim its place. You move back to your hammock. It sways gently as you approach. Its motion more fluid than before. The fabric feels softer, responding more easily to your touch. You settle into it, noticing the change in the way it supports you. You pull your coverings close. The warmth gathers more quickly. Your body responds with less resistance, accepting the heat with a readiness that had been dulled by the deeper cold. The process feels smoother, more natural. You close your eyes. Sleep approaches. Different now. Less strained. The tension that once accompanied it has eased, replaced by a quieter, more stable sense of rest. Your breathing slows, your body settling into the rhythm with greater ease. Outside, the ice continues to shift, the Arctic's gradually releasing its grip. Inside, you lie suspended in a space that is changing, adapting, moving towards something new. And as you drift into sleep once more, you carry with you the quiet awareness that even the harshest conditions do not remain forever. That change, slow and steady, finds its way into every corner of this frozen world. You lie still, aware of how different everything feels now. Even though the space around you has not changed in any obvious way, the hammock still sways gently, the lantern still burns, the ship still holds you within its wooden frames, and yet something has softened. You breathe in slowly, noticing how the air moves more easily through your chest. It no longer feels as heavy, as though the long weight of winter has lifted just enough to be felt. Around you, the quiet presence of others remains, though even that seems lighter somehow. You close your eyes, not from exhaustion, but from ease. There was a time, not so long ago, when sleep felt like a fragile thing, something you had to hold carefully, protect from the cold, from the noise, from the uncertainty that pressed in from every side. Now, it feels closer, more willing to come without resistance. You feel it. That quiet shift. Sailors who survived long Arctic winters often carried these memories with them, not as singular moments, but as a gradual transformation. The way sleep changed, from restless fragments to something steadier, marked the passage of time as clearly as any calendar. Historians still debate how deeply these experiences shaped those who endured them. Some accounts speak of resilience, of adaptation that strengthened the mind and body. Others suggest a lingering unease, a memory of the cold that never fully faded. You rest your hands against your sides. The fabric beneath your fingers feels familiar, softened by use, shaped by countless nights of adjustment and care. It has become part of your experience, as much as the ship itself. You listen. The sounds are gentle, a soft creak, distant shift, the quiet rhythm of breathing around you. They no longer feel intrusive. They belong. You take a slow breath, then another. Your body settles deeper into the hammock, the curve supporting you in a way that now feels natural. What once required effort has become instinct. The small adjustments, the careful positioning, all woven into your sense of rest. You remember the first nights, the sharp cold, the restless sleep, the uncertainty. It feels distant now. Not forgotten, but softened. You allow your thoughts to drift. Not toward anything specific, just away. The Arctic remains vast beyond the hull, its ice still shifting, its light continuing to change. Yet within this space you have found a rhythm, a way of existing that balances the demands of the environment with the needs of your body. You feel it now, a quiet harmony. Your breathing slows further, each inhale and exhale blending into a steady pattern that carries you gently towards sleep. The tension that once lingered at the edges of your awareness has faded, replaced by something calmer, more grounded. You sink deeper. The hammock moves with you. Barely, just enough to remind you that you are held, supported, part of something that continues even as you rest. The light above dims slightly, or perhaps your awareness of it does. The shadows soften, their movement less defined, less important. The world narrows to the space you occupy, to the warmth you have gathered. You drift, slowly, gently, and as you do, the memories of cold nights, of shifting ice, of restless watches and shared warmth, all settle into something quieter, something that no longer demands attention. They simply exist, part of you, part of this place. Your breathing becomes softer. Your body still. The ship continues its quiet presence, the ice beyond it no longer a threat, but a distant, fading memory of movement and sound. The light remains, but it no longer pulls you away from rest. You let go, not completely, just enough, and in that space between waking and sleep, you find a calm that feels earned, shaped by endurance, by adaptation, by the long, slow passage of time in a world defined by extremes. The Arctic night, once endless, now feels like something that has passed through you, leaving behind not only memory, but a quiet understanding of how rest can exist even in the harshest places. You breathe, softly, and drift, deeper, into a sleep that comes without resistance, carried gently by the rhythm you have learned, held within the quiet, steady presence of the ship and the fading echo of the frozen world beyond. Sweet dreams.